Hi, welcome to this Blender 2.8 stylized dragon tutorial. What you're going to learn in this tutorial is how to take basic shapes and then use the boolean modifier to form those basic shapes into a combined mesh. You're then going to learn how to take that mesh into sculpt mode. In sculpt mode, you're going to add further details to the mesh. Additional things you're going to learn are how to make teeth and gums, how to make eyeballs as well as eyelids. You're going to learn how to use masks to make features like you see here with this armor here in the front, as well as the armor in the back. You're also going to learn how to make an image to use as a brush to form the scales that you see here. This tutorial is a fully narrated tutorial. This tutorial is taught in a step-by-step fashion. I try to say not only what I'm doing, but why I'm doing what I'm doing at the time. I also try to say every shortcut key that I can think of to say. So thank you for taking a look at this tutorial. As far as your muscle detail, you can look at different animals. You can look at people to give you an idea of how you think this should go. When I'm doing biceps, I like to make the bicep and then drag it down to make it sit better. Same thing with the forearm type muscles. I like to pull them and drag them around. And again, you can have fun with it because it's right now you're trying to add detail, and even if you were trying to make the muscles as realistic as possible, smooth brush is going to take some of your detail away. Hopefully you can see how useful the crease brush is. So once you have your basic muscles or structures set up, you can take the inflate brush, make them more prominent. And some geometry to the wings. Yep. Thought I was on the crease brush. And shift them in the mouse button and pan. Just adding detail in for the wing muscles. Something else you can do with the crease brush is it goes in, right? The crease brush is, when I say it, I mean the crease brush. It's very useful for making things sharp. So if I hold control right on the edge of something, it makes things sharp. So now I'm not holding control, I'm digging in. Now I'm holding control. See how I have that sharp edge? So you can sharpen things like muscles very quickly, very easily. Extremely useful for forming muscles, structures. The crease brush, I'm holding control and I'm sharpening these muscles. And again, what I'm thinking of as I'm doing this is the smooth brush is going to take away a lot of the sharpness. So that's kind of what's going through my mind as I'm doing this. Like, I'm not too concerned about things being too sharp. You can actually add to the wings here. the detail. And we can actually, by holding control, make this, put a sharp edge here to make things look even more prominent. Want to be careful though with that. You can see we have a lot of like the bumpy things that we tried to get rid of before. Holding control and the middle mouse button to zoom forward. And that's why I'm mentioning to you about the smooth brush. Not brush, smooth modifier. So I'm just sharpening this up. Smoothing this out here. Here I'm gonna press F, pull that up like that. Okay, I'm gonna hold control, zoom in. I'm gonna increase the geometry here more. And go to the inflate brush. Fill this area up some here. Go to the blob brush, press F. Dig in some here. Sometimes if you want to push into your mesh, you can let go of control, then hold it again. Go back to inflate. Get this more. I'm thinking like my brain's thinking powerful, like bottom jaw muscles here. So what I'm going to do now is hold control, hold shift, left click and drag. Drag a mask right here. I'm going to go to the grab brush. It's bigger. Pull this up. That. Go to the crease brush. Press F. Make this edge so much sharper there. Be careful when you get around this area. So what I told you before about the thin areas, you need to be concerned about that. Turning on front facing if you get too close to there. I think what I'm going to do is hold control, press I. Zoom back some. Push this whole area in. Out. Go to the inflate brush. This bridge here, connect right into the head there. I'm gonna go to the grab brush. Bring that brow down like that. Thing that I tend to think dragons look better when with their eyes being smaller, so I'm going to go to the inflate brush. And inflate this area around here, which has the effect of making the eye socket seem smaller. I'm going to press F, push my brush in to shrink the brush. The inflate brush on, press F, build up this here. I'm going to go to the crease brush. I'm going to hold control to dig in to make this sharper here. Then when you hold control, you make things sharper. You don't dig in, like I just said. You don't hold, you kind of dig in. I'm going to go to grab, grab brush, the crease brush here. More geometry with the simplified brush. Back to the crease brush. Just adding in some detail here. I'll go to the inflate brush. Just make these detail features more prominent. Then we can go to the crease brush, hold control, resharpen them up some. Hold control the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold Alt, then press M to hide the mask. Go to inflate. Be careful. Saying it to you and to myself right here. Matter of fact, I will click options, turn on front faces only. Grab brush. Go to inflate, turn off front faces only. Just making sure it wasn't on for the blob brush. I'm going to press F and then move my mouse to make my brush smaller. We're going to go back to object mode and go to edit mode. And what I'm going to try to do here is grab everything but the legs. So I'm going to hold shift, press Z, hold control as well as the right mouse button, drag all over this. So I'll hide that. Okay, now I'm going to hold shift as well as my mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold control as well as the right mouse button. Select more geometry. I'm going to press H to hide that. Now I'll hold control as well as the right mouse button. Actually, let me go to view, viewpoint, front. Hold control, hold the right mouse button, selecting all of this right here. Pressing hide. Now our geometry is not going to be perfectly symmetrical for what we're doing here, and I'll show you how to deal with that. So we're about to change the size of the arms and the legs. Okay, so we're going to press A to select everything. We're going to press S to scale on the Z axis. Like that. We're going to press G and then Z. Moving this down so things don't bunch up on the body. So we're going to hold Alt, press H to bring back the rest of the body. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to left click on nothingness, hold control, hold the right mouse button and select right here. We're going to hold control, press I, then press H to hide that. I'm going to hold control as well as the right mouse button to select the head. I'm going to press G, then move the head. Oops. I right clicked, I press G again, now Y. To move the head forward, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to decrease the area of influence on the head. Left click. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis now. Rolling the mouse wheel to increase the area of influence. I'm going to press G and then Z. Roll the mouse wheel to decrease the area of influence. Now I'm going to hold Alt, press H, bring back the rest of our body, left click, hold Shift, then press Z. Okay, so now we're going to go to Object Mode. We're going to go back to Sculpt Mode. And see this little point sticking out here? Our mesh is not symmetrical anymore, so how do we deal with that? Okay, so one of the ways you can deal with that is you can go to Dynamic Topology, go down to Relative Detail, change this to Constant Detail. Then we have this Symmetric Size, Optimize Detail Flood. We used Detail Flood before. This time, what we're going to do is we're about to select Symmetricize. Okay, currently the way things are set up, this is x minus x2 plus x, so minus x is the left side. So what that means is this side, along with this thing here, will be copied to the other side. I want it to be this side is the main, and this side copies this side. So to do that, we'll click this arrow, and then we'll select plus x to minus x, and then with that done, now we'll select Symmetricize. And now we can see that that little bump is gone. Okay, I'm going to go to where we see detailing. I'm going to change this back to relative detail. I'm holding them in the mouse button and taking a look. I think the neck is too long. So I'm going to go to Object Mode, go to Edit Mode, and I'm going to press 3 on the number keypad. I'm going to zoom in by rolling the mouse wheel, hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Shift, press Z to go to X-ray mode. I'm going to press B for box select to select the head. I'm going to press our connected proportional editing tool is actually on. Actually, let me left click to deselect. I'm going to select the body. Hide the body just because there's a lot of geometry, and I think I want the head to be about here, so I'm gonna hold the right mouse button, press G. I'm moving my mouse, so I'm increasing the area of influence by rolling the mouse. I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to hold Alt, press H. Left click to deselect. I'm going to hold Shift, press Z. Go back to Object Mode. I think it looks better like that. Let's go to sculpt mode. Okay, I'm going to turn on dynamic topology. I'm going to go to inflate. I'm going to hold shift and smooth that out. I'm going to hold control shift, draw a mask around the neck. Then I'm going to hold control, press I. So everything else is protected. I'm going to press F. Just increase the thickness of the neck. What I'm doing here is I'm like kind of look like the neck was coming towards the bottom. I'd rather have it come towards the top. I'm gonna hold Alt, press M. And Alt Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Right here, I'm gonna hold Control, hold Shift, draw a lasso select around here. Hold Control, press I to invert the selection. Actually, you know what? Well, let's see. I'm going to go to flatten. Press F to increase this. Size of that brush. What I'm doing here is I wanted the foot to be more like this. When I say this, I mean not long, like what you see here. I'm gonna hold Alt, press M, hold Shift, smooth this out. I'm going to go to inflate, hold Control, just make that come more to a point. I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button. This looks fairly thin there. Let's go to inflate that some. Go to the grab brush. Just making some adjustments here. let's Okay, let's make some teeth for our dragon. We'll go to the upper left. We'll go to object mode. And what we'll do is we'll press H to temporarily hide our dragon. We'll left click on our empty, press H to hide that. I'm going to hold shift, press C. This makes sure that your 3D cursor is in the center of your scene. I'm going to hold shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm going to go to mesh and then select cube. So we have this cube right here. We're going to go to the upper left. We're going to go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, we're going to right click, select subdivide. Here's our subdivide menu on our bottom left hand corner. We're going to take this up to 3. Okay, so we're going to press 1 to go to front view. We're going to press S to scale. Oops, I'm going to press O to turn off the proportional editing tool. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. And I make that like a thin rectangle there. We're now going to press 7 to go to our top view. We're going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Same thing. Like that. I'm going to hold shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to press 1 to go back to front view. Okay, now I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hold shift, press Z. I'm going to go to box select. I'm going to go from my left hand side, press B. Left click, I'm going to drag slightly past the center point. So I have that whole side right there. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. I'm then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, with that side deleted, what we're going to do is go to our wrench, which is our modifier panel. We're going to click add the arrow to the right to add a modifier. We're going to add a mirror modifier. So with that mirror modifier added, we're going to click this button here. So it looks like our mirror modifier is applied. I'm going to hold shift, press Z. Okay, what we're going to do now is press 7 to go to a top view. Rolling the mouse wheel to zoom in, holding shift and middle mouse button to pan a view. I'm going to hold shift, press Z. I'm going to press B for box select. And I'm going to press R to rotate like this. And then going to click our manipulator to pull this forward. And basically what we're doing now is making gums. We have a group of faces here as well as here. We need to have 6 faces basically, or 6 sections that are relatively the same size. I'm going to go to vertex select. I'm going to hold control, hold the right mouse button to select those vertices right there. I'm going to press E to extrude. And I tried to make this to be about the same size as those. I'm going to push this to the side and up. Then I'm going to press R to rotate. So we have 3 sections. We're going to need 3 more. I'm going to press E to extrude. Try to make this about the same size as the other ones. Push this over like this. Then press R to rotate like that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need 2 more. So since this is so close to being straight back, I'm going to press R to rotate on the Y axis 0, then left click, and that just makes sure that this is totally like lined up as in the direction we're facing. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then pull this out again, trying to have this be the same size. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Need 1 more. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. So now we have all of our sections. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, so we basically have our gums here. So we're going to hold shift, press Z. This is going to be covered up by the mouth. This is going to be the top of the gums. So we're going to make sure we're on face select. We're going to press C for paint select. We're going to select the top faces right here. We're going to right click to get out of paint select, press X to bring up our delete menu, and then choose faces to delete. Okay, what we want to do is have our gums come out somewhat. So what we're going to do is face select on. We're going to hold Alt. While holding Alt, we're going to click right on the edge. And what that does is that made this select a loop. So I'm on face select. I held Alt, selected an edge, and I was able to grab that whole loop. So now I'm going to hold Shift, hold Alt, and then click this edge, right? So now with that done, I'm going to hold Alt, press S. This gives us a special kind of scale. So now I'm scaling up to make these gums come out there. And I left clicked on nothingness to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I am going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. See this small gap right there? I'm looking at the mirror modifier. Okay, I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to click here. Okay, that's interesting. So we have this merge limit here. I believe this is new since the last time. So the higher you bring this up, this is make sure the two parts of your mirror modifier merge together more. Okay, the 3D cursor is right here. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hold Shift and then right click right here. I let go of Shift. The reason why I right clicked right here is because where the 3D cursor is at in Blender is where your objects tend to come in to Blender at. So I want to bring in a cube right here. So I'm going to hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add To menu. I'm going to go towards Cube. Now I didn't click on Cube yet. The reason why we want to bring this cube over away from the center is so that we can work with this cube without the mirror modifier trying to merge the cube together. So I'm going to left click, so we have our cube here. Because this isn't in the center, we can work with this cube. What we want to do now is we want to right click and then select subdivide. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate, left click on nothingness to deselect. Go to face select in the upper left, press C for paint select. Select all of those faces on the top, right click to get out of paint select, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view, go to the upper left to select vertex select, hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan, left click on this bottom vertex, take the manipulator and push this straight down. I'm going to hover right here over our object. It's going to be our tooth. Press L. Oh, let me go to face select first. Now with face select on, I'll hover here, press L. I can select the entire object. Now I'm going to press S to scale this down. I'm going to press S to scale in the Z axis to make that tooth longer. Okay, now what I'm going to do is push this towards the center. Holding the middle mouse button, rotating the view so I can see better what's going on here. You want to push this towards the center, but not too close. So I'm going to push this up some like that. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to hold Control and then press 2. Let's try that again. Hold Control, press 2. Okay. I've thought that was going to put a subdivision surface modifier on. What we can do is what I was trying to do was put a subdivision surface modifier on here. So what we'll do, since we're on the modifier tab here anyway, is we'll click add modifier. We'll click this arrow pointing looking thing towards the right, left click there, and then we'll go to subdivision surface. So this is a subdivision surface modifier. I'm gonna left click on this, and now we can see the modifier applied there. See how we see these like transparent here? To make this modifier look like it's applied, we just look towards the subdivision surface modifier options, which are right here, and we want to take this up to, see where it says viewport 1, we want to take this up to 2 as well. Just looking at the difference between those two. Okay, I was doing that just to look at the difference between the viewport 1 and viewport 2. Anyway, this button right here is going to take away this kind of like gray looking things right here. So we'll left click there. So now we get to see what our teeth look like here. Now, something else we can do with these teeth are we're about to duplicate. So this tooth right here is just made from the mirror modifier, right? So one of the things we can do to help ourselves for the future is we can, I went to edge select, I'm holding alt, so I put a seam right here, and I'm doing that because so this tooth can be flattened out, I think. And you want to imagine this like unfolding. So I think I'm going to hold shift, click here, deselect here. I'm going to hold shift, click here as well as here. So what I'm doing here is we're not going to I'm putting seams in to thinking in the future of the laying out UVs for this, and basically the way you lay out UVs is, or the way you go through the process, you take a 3D object like this and you have to lay it out flat. A lot of times people will describe it as laying out clothes, and clothes will most of the time are designed to fit on a 3D structure, which is a person, right? So I am marking these seams here, and basically what I'm trying to do is think of this laying out in 3D. I'm going to hold shift, click here, unselect them, hold shift to select it. When you hold shift, you select more than one object, by the way. That's why when you see me holding shift, I'm holding shift. Okay, what I'm going to do is hold control, then press E. This brings up our edges menu. And this, what I'm talking about, this UV seams, what you want to do with UV seams is to set them up, you mark the seam. So first you select the seam, then you mark them. So with those seams selected, I'm going to select mark seam. So I mark that seam right there. And I'm going to hold Alt, click there. I'll let go of Alt. When I held Alt, it allowed me to select all of these loops. That's why instead of selecting one loop, I selected all of the loops. Now I want to hold Shift and select all of the loops here. The reason why I'm holding Shift is if I didn't hold Shift, as soon as I clicked here, I'd lose this selection. So I'm going to hold Shift, which makes it so that when I click, I don't lose this selection. Then I'm going to hold Alt, which is going to allow me to select that entire edge. So now I'm left clicking. So I left clicked while holding Shift and Alt. I'm going to let go of Shift and Alt. I'm now going to hold Control. While holding Control, I'm going to press E. This brings up our edges menu. I'm then going to select Mark Seam. So now we have a seam there. I'm doing that because I'm thinking towards the future as far as laying this out flat. So now I want to select here, right? So I'm going to click here, hold Control, and then while holding Control, I'm clicking here. And what I did there is just let go of Shift, Control, sorry. I clicked here, held Control, clicked here, and then I let go of Control, not Shift. Is I use something called the shortest path. So if you want to select something in a line but you don't want to select. If you want to select an entire edge, you would select Alt. If you want to select a part of an edge, you use Control and something called the shortest path. So we're going to do it again in a second. I'm going to hold Control, press E, select Mark Seam, right? So now we have that seam, because again, we're thinking about laying this out flat. So I'm thinking of this piece right here basically laying out like that. If you can imagine this being like a cardboard cutout. So I want to select here to here. So I select here. I hold Control. Control is going to let me choose. It's going to let me click here, which I didn't do yet. And then when I hold Control, it's going to click these two pieces right here. Now, these pieces are short. I could easily hold Shift and just select them. But just imagine a longer selection that you want to select. So anyway, I'm holding Control. And then I left click. And then I let go of Control. And now we select those pieces there. I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our Edges menu. And then I'm going to select Mark Seam. Okay, what I'm going to do is hold the middle mouse button. If you want to change your UV seams just like you selected them, you can always deselect those seams later on. For the teeth, if you want to make the teeth seem longer or sharper, you can pull them down more. The reason why we put the seams in there is because we're going to duplicate this tooth, so we already have the seam in it, so save some work. So I'm going to go to the upper left, go to Face Select, and I'm going to hover here, press L. Look at that. So that's something else to keep in mind. When you put a seam in, you can check your seams by going to Face Select, and you'll only select how the seams are set up. So that's fine. I'm going to hover here, press L. It's actually very useful eventually. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, and pull out another tooth. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis. That. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click. Just pulling that back. Something like that. I'm gonna hold Shift, press D, right click. I'm gonna press R to rotate on the Z axis like this. You can make the teeth seem shorter just by pushing them up into the gum. Press R to rotate on the Z axis. Lets me spin the tooth pretty easily. Hold Shift, press D, right click, make another tooth. Shift plus D, then right click. The right click deselects, by the way. That's what I'm doing. I'm deselecting so I can just move the tooth just by the manipulator. I want this to be longer. This needs to fit in the dragon's mouth. So I'm going to left click on nothingness. Okay, I'm going to hover here, press L, hover here, press L, hover here, press L. And now what I'm going to do is hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis. You can see the preview line showing us how we're going to scale. So now we're just dragging to make this longer like that. And then what we can do is just pull this whole thing back. Too far. You can also press S to scale on the X axis. Okay, the mirror. Need to be careful of that. That's interesting. Huh. To get used to this new way of the new mirror modifier. I'm going to press S to scale. That's interesting. push this forward some. Okay, for these teeth here, I'm gonna hover here, press L, 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 L. Pull them to the side like that. I'm gonna press R to rotate. I'm gonna press S to scale them down just some, just a little. Push them up some, in some. I'm gonna hold Shift, press D, right click, pull these teeth back. Look at them. Left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to take this tooth here, get rid of it, press, so I pressed L, then L, then I'm pressing X, then I'm going to choose faces to delete. Okay, now that we have this top row of teeth, what we can do is press A to select all of them, hold Shift, press D, right click, and then bring these teeth down like that. I'll hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan the view. Okay, we're about to scale this to make this flip. It's an easy way to flip. However, I'm going to show you this before we do this. This is important. Pay attention to this. This will help you in numerous things. We're going to the upper left overlays. We're going down to where we see normals, right? This button is all the way to the left under normals. We're going to left click that. See how these lines are coming out here? A normal is the direction that a polygon is facing, right? We want these lines to be coming out. We're about to scale this to make this flip up. Once we do that, the lines you see coming out here, which are the normals that are facing in the correct direction, are not going to be facing in the direction. So how do we scale this to flip it? We're going to press, you could also rotate this, by the way, and rotating it will not have your normals be affected. This is my way of doing things. And I think it is good for you to know about normals as well. So I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis, -1. Then I'm going to press enter. All right, so I scaled this to flip it around. I'm just moving this down. See how these lines, they were coming out. Now they're not coming out. So how do you fix this? One way you can do is you can go to mesh. You can go down to normals and then see this recalculate outside. You could click there, or you could use the shortcut. Hold Alt, press N. This brings up your normals menu, and you're going to go to recalculate outside. So we're going to left click, and now we can see the normals are in their correct position again. Okay, what we're going to do is go to the upper left. We're going to go, this is overlays. We're going to come down to normals, that button underneath normals to the left. We're going to click to turn that off. I didn't mean to deselect all this. So we're going to hold Shift, press D, press Z, hold Control, hold the right mouse button. We're going to select all of these bottom teeth. To make sure we selected all of them, then we're going to hold Control, press L. So while we have all these bottom teeth selected, we're going to hold Shift, press Z, and that pressing Shift Z brings you into X-ray mode. Pressing Shift Z brings you out. We're going to go to the right, click the context button, go to vertex groups, click the plus button to the right. Where we see group, we're going to double click there. We're going to rename this lower teeth, then press enter, and then we're going to click assign. Okay, so why did we do this? This gives us an easy way to select all of the geometry here. So we clicked assign, right? So I can left click off of this. Now this is used in edit mode, all right? So we're in edit mode. So when you're in edit mode, normally if I wanted to select this, if I selected tooth, I press L. I just select that piece, right? So if I want to select this, I can select this, and then I could go do all this stuff to select all that, right? I'm going to left click off on nothingness to deselect. Suppose I just want to select it easily. Well, we made this vertex group, so I can click select, and we have that whole, all that the bottom teeth and the bottom gum easily selected. So I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is go to our upper left. We're going to click and then go to object mode. Here in object mode, we're going to right click. Now we're in, the reason why I want this shade smooth. The reason why we can see this is because we're in object mode. When you right click in edit mode, you will not see this. Okay, so to see this shade smooth, you need to be in object mode. I'm going to left click on shade smooth. Now I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. I'm going to hold Alt, press H, and now we have the rest of our dragon brought back. Okay, so with this here, I'm going to left click on these teeth, hold the middle mouse button, rotate, take the manipulator, push this forward. I'm going to press S to scale this down. This back. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis. I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. Taking a look. Okay, so we're going to press S to scale on the X axis like that. See this line? This is so nice with Blender 2.8. We can see here's the angle of the teeth. We want to make this more lined up with that. So we're going to press R to rotate on the X axis like this. Pull that back. Press S to scale on the X axis like that. I'm holding the middle mouse, but I'm taking a look. I'm looking like right here, trying to decide if I want to make this. Yeah, that's the scale on the x-axis, like that. I'm gonna left click to deselect. Now taking a look. I like how that looks. Okay, I'm gonna left click on our dragon. I am going to go to the modifier button. I thought I had applied this smooth modifier. I'm going to apply it now. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Hold the middle mouse button to turn to the side. With the dragon selected, I'm going to go to the upper left. I'm going to click, then go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, I am going to press 3 on the number keypad to go to a side view. I'm going to hold shift, press Z to go to wireframe view. I'm going to hover my mouse about here. I'm going to grab right here, like, so I'm going to hover here, press, well, before I press anything, I'm going to vertex select. I'm going to come down here, press B for box select, left click and drag to select those vertices right there. I'm going to come to the upper right, hold Control, hold the right mouse button so I can draw a lasso select. So I let go of Control as well as lasso select, or right click, which let me come out of lasso select. Okay, so what I want is I want to select everything other than what I have selected. So I'm going to hold Control, then press I. That let me invert the selection. With that selection inverted, I'm going to go to the right. I am going to go to the second button from the bottom. And we have this vertex group. So if you're like, why don't I see, you see the other vertex group that we made? That was on the teeth. The teeth are a separate object from our dragon. So what we want to do is we're going to click this plus button to the right. We're going to double click this group here. It's a lot of geometry, so sometimes there's lag. There we go. I'm going to name this main body, then press enter. I'm then going to select assign. Okay, with that done, I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect, hold shift, press Z to come out of X-ray mode, go to the upper left, then go back to object mode. Here in object mode, what I'm going to do is go to the modifier tab. I'm going to go to the right, click the little arrow shape. I'm going to go to the smooth modifier. I'm going to go to the factor. I'm going to take this up to 1. Press enter. I'm then going to go to the repeat, and I'm going to take this to 50. You can see what that did to our wings as well as to the dragon's feet, which I don't like. I didn't want to lose the detail that we had in the wings. I did want this to be smoothed out, so I like how this is. I don't like how that is. That's why we made a group. So we're going to click vertex group. We're going to click here, and then we're going to select main body. And what happened is we got the detail back in the wings as well as in the dragon's feet. The reason for that is this smooth modifier is only working on the vertex group that we had selected. So you can choose where the smooth modifier works, which is very nice. Okay, let's give our dragon some actual eyes. It's fairly easy to do. We look for right here, where the eye should be at. We hold shift, right click, put the 3D cursor there. We hold shift. Where the 3D cursor, I'd let go of shift. Where the 3D cursor is at in Blender is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So I'm going to hold shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm going to select UV sphere. I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis 90. I'm going to right click and then select shade smooth. I'm going to press S to scale. I'll just rotate it by moving that to the side. Let's hold the middle mouse button to smoothly zoom in. So what I'm going to do is I want to have this mirrored to the other side. So I am going to, we're in our modifier panel. I'm going to click add modifier. I'm going to go to the mirror modifier, right? So you can't see anything. So what we're going to do is where we see mirror object, we're going to click here. We're going to select empty. So now we're mirroring off of the empty. So now our dragon has eyes. Rolling the mouse wheel back. Zoom out. I'm going to hold shift, press C to put the 3D cursor directly back in the center. I'm going to click on our dragon. I'm going to click apply to apply that mirror modifier. Okay, with our dragon clicked on, we're going to go to scope mode. Adjust some things. I'm going to hold control, hold shift, and then left click select. So I held control, I held shift, and then I held the left mouse button. That let me do a lasso select to mask these arms there. And I want to do some work on the chest here. So now I'm going to hold Alt press M to deselect. And now I'm going to hold control, hold shift, hold the left mouse button and draw a lasso select around the head and the neck. I'm going to hold control, press I to invert that selection. So now I'm going to hold shift, just left clicking and not dragging. Press F to shrink that. Now I am left clicking and dragging. I'm going to hold Alt, press M to come out of that mirror modifier. I'm going to hold Control, hold Shift, and then left click to select right here. Press F to scale. Just want to drag that forward some. I'm going to go to the inflate brush. Press F. Zoom in. Okay, I'm just going to left click there. Just saw an issue there. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. I'm going to hold Alt, press M. Hold Alt, press M. There we go. To clear the mask. I'm going to hold Shift. Oh, that's cap lock. Hold Shift. There we go. Just taking a look. Okay, we're gonna add some edges to this. I tend to like more stylistic art. So we're gonna go to the crease brush. Okay, so you know what I'm doing. See this circular shape here? Everything, because we smoothed everything out, we have like a very smooth shape to everything. I want things to have a more sharper, more stylistic look to them. So I have the crease brush. So when I don't hold hold control. When I hold control, I will make things sharper. So I'm not doing anything yet, but eventually I'm going to come here, hold control, and that will make this crease tool push out, which will make a sharp edge here. Then what I'll do is I'll not hold control, because control brings things out. The regular for the regular settings for the crease brush are to bring things in. So so like here, here, the leg, the muscles here, the calf muscles, the neck there, things that I want to make sharper. So let's do it. So I'm going to hold control. So now I am holding control. See how I make that sharp edge there? Now let go of control. Be aware we don't have the dynamic topology turned on, which is fine. I'm not holding control, so I'm like digging into this muscle here. See this edge here? So when I see edges there soft, I'll hold control and I'll give it like a hard edge there. And then you can kind of see like the leftovers from before. So I'm not holding, I wasn't holding control when I dug in, not holding control. So I'm like digging in here. And then now I'm holding control to sharpen up. Kind of like the muscles there. Holding control. Holding control. So I'm like digging in there, not holding control. Same thing here. You can very easily form muscles and make things look more stylistic with this crease brush. Is spectacular for it. And hold shift here. Shift there. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, so see this shape here. I'll dig in here. Dig in there. Digging in. You might sit there and say, well, you were doing this before. Why are you going back again? Well, this smooth modifier tends to make things look a lot better. So just a lot of the work we would have to manually smooth out. I think it's worthwhile to put the smooth modifier on, then just come back and you still have kind of like the form in there, even with the smooth tool work. So I'm adding in these sharp edges where I think things are a little too soft. I also like stylistic graphics, so if you don't like a stylistic look, you can avoid this, or you can just use the smooth brush to smooth out some of the hard edges you see. I'm doing the same thing to these wing pieces here. I'm holding control and just making them sharper. As far as depending on what you're planning to do here, don't get too, like if you're planning just to have a sculpt, go add the detail you want. My plan for this is to, sculpt this to get it to look like how I want it to look. And then later on to retopologize this. So, you'll only keep so much detail. So small things, don't let them get to you. If you're planning to do like me and use this for animation, when I do a quick zoom, you can hold shift, press B. Oh, shift B. Pretty easy way to zoom in quickly. Hold shift. It's supposed to be like a claw type deal coming out of here, so that's why I'm doing that. I'm gonna hold control. I just hold the middle mouse button, taking a look. holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm just looking for angles, you know, things that I think I can sharpen up. Let me go to the blob brush. Press F, hold control, just to make that deeper. Go back to the crease brush. Some holding control. Not holding control. Holding control. Holding control, not holding control. Holding control. Okay, what we're going to do now is go to our upper left. We're going to go to object mode. Click on the eye here. Hold shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan down. Okay, what this eye selected, what we're going to do is we are going to go to the upper left. We're going to go to view. We're going to come down to okay, we want local view right here. So we're going to left click, toggle local view. There you go. I'm going to press 3 to go into right view. If you look up here, we can see we're in the right orthographic view. That's where we want to be. With this selected, we're going to go to our upper left. So we're going to go to edit mode. I've rotated this forward, or I've rotated this 90 degrees, which is fine. I'm going to hold shift, press D, so I have this, a duplicate, right? I'm going to press, what do I want to do first? I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis, -9, then left click to lock that in. I'm then going to press S to scale and then 1.1. Then left click to lock that in. Okay, trying to think how I want to do this. Remember we marked the seam to first selecting. We have two objects here. We have this is going to be an eyelid, and then we have the eye that's inside, right? So if we make this transparent, we'll select both things, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to edge select, put in a loop. I held Alt, I selected here, I put a loop right through the center of this. I'm going to hold Control E to bring up our edges menu. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to mark the seam. Now, in this case, I'm marking the seam for easy selection, not necessarily for UVs. I'm going to go to Face Select. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press A to select everything. I'm going to hold Shift, press S. This brings up our Snap to menu. I'm going to choose Cursor to select it, which puts our 3D cursor right in the center here, which is what we want. I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to change our 3D cursor from the medium point, the pivot point, I should say. I'm changing the pivot point from Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point, to the 3D cursor. Okay, what I'm going to do is left click to deselect. I have this seam here, right? The seam is there so I can easily move my mouse here and then press L to select this section here. We need to separate this section from this section. So we're selected on this, but this isn't separated, right? So we're going to press Y. And now when I press Y, this is separate. So I'm left clicking. My finger is holding down the left mouse button so I can show you this. Still holding the left mouse button. Now I'm going to right click. Now I let go of the right and the left mouse button. When you right click in Blender, it's kind of like a mini undo button. Okay, so with this selected as well as separated, I'm going to press R to rotate like this. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to press R to rotate like that. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I'm then going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to separate this. This is all one object, right? This being the eye, this being the eyelid. I'm going to separate this so that this being the eyelid is its own object. So I can put a solidify modifier so I can easily control the thickness of the eyelid. So I'm going to I'm on face select. We look to the upper left hand corner. I'm going to press L, then hover over the bottom eyelid, then press L as well. Okay, with this selected, I'm going to press the P key. This brings up our separate menu, and then I'm going to choose selection. So now this is its own separate object. I'm going to go to View, and then go back down to Local View, toggle Local View, and then left click. So we can see the eye lid right there. So we're going to go back to Object Mode. Make sure we're clicked on the eyelid. We're going to go to our wrench, which is our modifier. Then we're going to click Add Modifier. We're going to go down over to the left slightly and then select Solidify Modifier. Okay, with the Solidify Modifier selected, when we look to the right, we can see this thickness. We can increase the thickness. So we have a thicker eyelid, and we can then click on our eye. We'll press S to scale this down. So now we can really see the thickness of that eye. I'm going to hold Shift, press C. To move the 3D cursor back to its center point. Looks cool. Okay, we're going to zoom in. I'm going to click here. Hold the mouse wheel. I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to zoom down. We're going to go to Scope Mode. So here in Scope Mode, I'm going to go to the grab brush. Now our dynamic topology is not turned on. I'm going to hold Control, hold Shift, draw a loop, a mask loop around all this right here. The reason why I did that was so that with the grab brush I can press F, I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Press F to make this even bigger. Yeah, I like that. So he needs to be able to see to the front, so push this over something like that. Let's hold shift. I'm gonna hold control, press I to switch to mask. And then go to the inflate brush. Remember the eye is a separate part here, so I'm gonna like just filling in the flesh around the eye. The eye doesn't need a mask because it's a separate object. So I'm gonna hold Alt, then press M. It's kind of strange here. I'm going to hold Shift. Go to the crease brush. I'm going to hold Shift. Hold Control. No, not hold Control. Zooming back to take a look. I'm gonna press F to shrink my brush. Just adding this detail. I just saw this now. Okay. Okay, let's make some scale. So we're going to go to object mode. Zoom back. We're going to press A to select everything. Press H to hide. We'll press 1 to go to front view. I held shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold shift, press A. I'm going to bring in a cube. We're going to roll the mouse to zoom in. Hold shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. We'll go to the upper left. We'll select edit mode. We'll right click, select subdivide. We'll take this up to 3. This corner, this subdivide is over. It should be in the corner. If you don't, it might look like that. Just click that arrows to make it, blow up. Take the smoothness to 1. Now we're going to press 3. What we're going to do here is go to Edge Select, hold Alt, left click here, here being the center edge. We're in the right orthographic view. If you're not sure which view you're in, look to the upper left-hand corner, hold Control, press E. This brings up our edges menu. Select Mark Seam. We're going to left-click. I did that just for selection purposes. I'm going to face select, holding L, pressing L, pressing X to bring up our delete menu, then choosing faces to delete. I'm going to press 1 to go back to front view. Okay, so this is going to be the basis for our scales here. So we're going to make sure we're on face select. We're going to press C to select everything that we see here. I'm going to right click. I am then going to go to the pivot point options here. I'm going to select individual origins. I'm then going to hold Alt, press E. This brings up our extrude menu. I'm going to select extrude individual faces. I'm going to left click, right click. Because we have this set to individual origins, we just made new geometry. We're scaling this down. So we're separating or scaling each individual face down. Now we're going to hold Shift, press D, then right click. So we made duplicates that are separated from all of the rest of our geometry here. Now I'm currently selected on the duplicate geometry. I'm going to hold Control, press I to select everything else, right? Now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. So if you're like, what did he just do? When we duplicated these, we were selected on them, right? So I did Control I to select everything other than what we currently had selected, which were these. And I pressed X to delete. So now we have this left, which is what we want. Okay, we don't want our scales to look totally flat like that. So what can we do? We can hold the middle mouse button to rotate. We can press A to select all of our faces. We can press E to extrude. And then right click. So we made new geometry. I'm going to hold Shift as well as middle mouse button to pan. And we'll just push this geometry out like that. Right? So now that we have that geometry pushed out like that, we'll left click, go to object mode, and then we'll go to our modifier tab, which looks like a wrench. We'll left click and then select subdivision surface modifier. So now we have this. Okay, so now we're gonna go, well, before that we're gonna right click. We can see shade smooth because we're in object mode. If we weren't in object mode, if we were in edit mode instead, we wouldn't see the shade smooth. So we're gonna select shade smooth. We're gonna go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, see these transparent, like this is the actual geometry, and the right here you can see what the modifier is doing, right? We're going to select everything. See this mean crease right here? This mean crease is a way of putting edges on things in a sense. So we could take the slider here, or we could use a shortcut. And I'm going to use the shortcut. Pay attention to this mean crease number. I'm going to hold Shift, press E. And now as I pull, you can see that we have not totally squares. These are a lot more square. So I'm going to click here. While I'm in here, I'm actually going to subdivide these. And then I'm going to go to the front face. I'm going to press S to scale them down. Let me go to this view right here. Hold Shift, press Z, press B for box select. I'm going to select these faces here. Hold Control, press L, then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Press 1 to go back to front view. Now I'm going to hold Shift, press Z to come back to this view. Go to the upper corner, then go back to object mode. I'm going to left click to deselect. reason why we're doing all this is so we can have scales. With this view selected here, we're actually going to zoom back. We're going to hold Alt H because we need our camera. I'm going to click on our dragon. I'm going to press H to hide it. These teeth here, I'll press H to hide them. Click the eyelids. I hid them. Now I'm hiding that as well. Okay, so with this view, I want the camera to look right here. So we're going to go to View. Let's see, camera set, viewport. There we go, align view. So what we want is align active camera to the view. So we want the camera to basically focus on what we're looking at right now. And there's the camera. We're going to click the edge of this rectangle represents the camera. We're going to look to the lower right. Click there, go to type, select here, then go to orthographic. So we have more control over what we see here. With the orthographic selected, we're going to hold shift, go to the left. Holding shift gives you fine selection. I'm going to change the resolution of the camera to 1000 by 1000. I'm going to select the camera, select the orthographic scale, zoom in like that. So I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to take the orthographic scale. There we go. I'm going to click this empty that I see in there, and I'm just going to press H to hide that for now. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go to the upper left. I'm going to go from matte cap to studio. This is shading right here that I selected. I'm going to zoom back, hold them the mouse button, and rotate the view. Our 3D cursor's here. Where the 3D cursor is at in Blender is where 3D objects tend to come into Blender at. I'm going to hold shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm going to select plane. I'm going to press R to rotate on the x-axis 90, then press enter. Press S to scale this up. I'm going to click the material button, click new material, base color, and then change this to black. We're currently set on the solid view. I'm going to go to the look dev view. So we have this black here. Now I'm going to go to view point, and then select camera. Okay, with the camera selected. Oh, okay, camera is selected. Okay, good. So what we want to do is take a picture of just what we see right here. I'm going to hold shift, press R. And I move this out of the way because we're going to take a picture of what you see right here. Not a regular render, but what's called a viewport render, which is going to take an image of just what you see right there. Okay, so a regular render, you would go to render. This isn't what we want to do. We're going to go to view, go down to viewport render image. We're going to left click there. So here's our image right there. We're going to click image, save as. Make sure you know where you are saving this to. I'm going to save this to textures. I named this scales before. That's why you see it now. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to click Save As Image, and then I'm going to click X to get out of that view we were looking at. Okay, we don't need this anymore. So what I'm going to do is select here, press X to bring up our delete menu, and then delete that. I'm going to click this plane, press X. bring up our delete menu and then delete that. I'm going to click on our camera, which is this box here. I'm going to change this to perspective. I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to go to our up near the upper right. I'm going to change this back to solid. I'm going to go to shading and turn this back to matte cap. I'm going to hold Alt press H to bring back all of our hidden geometry. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to get out of camera view. I'm going to click on the camera, pull it to the side. Okay, now we're going to select our dragon. I'm going to hold shift as well as middle mouse button to pan. We'll go to scoped mode. We're going to go to our upper right, go down to wireframe, take a look at our geometry. We have these dense geometry in arms and legs around the face. And this will have an easier time working on the scales here. I think will be good for the rest of the body. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to go up to the back to the overlays, turn off wireframe. We're going to click on the draw brush, go all the way to the bottom right, or not all the way, but towards the bottom right. Click this texture tab, click new, click open. You want to look for the image that we just made. If you click this these four boxes, you can see it. We're going to click open image, and basically what's going on now is we are going to be able to use this to, wherever we click, we should be able to have some semblance of this. You want to go to your upper right, turn your dynamic topology back on. Okay, you want to change where you see detailing at from relative detail to constant detail. We're going to change the resolution from 3 to 15. Okay, now when we press F, we should see there is our pattern in our brush. So we'll try clicking here. And you can see there's our scales there. Look pretty good. So pretty much wherever we want scales, we can click. You can make your brush bigger if you want bigger scales. So I'm just placing the scales wherever I think they should go. For things like the wings, for putting scales here, one thing you can do it's pretty cool is you can go to your mask brush, right? But you won't use your the texture on this. And then what you can do is look where you see stroke. So we're clicked on this top button all the way to the right. The default stroke method is space. We can left click here and choose line. So what we can do here is left click and drag this line like that. So I'm going to hold Alt, press M. That line is too big. Press F to shrink my brush. So now I'm going to left click and drag. So now I have these, I have a mask going over these parts of the wing here. And hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. So what's cool about this is you can hold Control, press I. So then you can go back to your draw brush. So now when I press F, you can see the scales are back. So I'll shrink them. I can just, work on these wings. Pretty cool. Okay, so here as well. So I'm just left clicking. I'm not holding and dragging. I'm left clicking and releasing. So now I'll hold Alt, press M. I was able to easily get that detail here while dodging this. You can pretty much do that where you want. That technique using the mask. You can try to get variation to your scales. You could have different brushes. You can also get variation by changing the size. I'm just, placing these around. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll go back to our mask brush. And we still have that stroke line method, which is good. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button and rotate the view. What we'll do here is similar to what we did before. And I'm going to hold Control, press I to invert the mask. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let's change this stroke method back to Blender's default method, which is space. We're going to go to clay strips brush. Let's check and see how much geometry. Whoa. Lightning. It's lightning outside. So I am going to increase the geometry here. Using a simplified brush to do this. Gonna hold Control as well as the mouse button. Okay, that's real thunder, by the way. I'm going to go to my detailing. I'm going to click and change this back to relative detail. Zoom in. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm actually going to use the blob brush. Press F to increase the brush size. So I'm not drawing straight across, I'm kind of drawing like up from the center. On Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. And the reason I switched back to relative detail is I'm more used to using the dynamic topology brush with relative detail, so I'm using the inflate brush. The reason why I'm doing this is I'm like, okay, if there's more space than I want, it's an easy way to deal with it. Just looking at this bottom piece here. Okay, so now I'm going to hold control. I'm going to go for the crease brush. Just making a separation there with the crease brush. Right down the center there. Crease brush is extremely useful. Okay, so now we'll come in with the crease brush. Hold Alt. Actually, I think I'm going to turn off dynamic topology for this. There we go. Very easy to just hold control, add some sharpness on across there. Very cool. Okay, so now I'm gonna hold Alt, press M, and go to the, stay on the crease brush, and we're gonna put a edge right along here. So dynamic topology is turned off still, which is good. Yep. So we're just putting a crease right along this armor here. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan, Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, what we're going to do is go back to the mask brush. We're going to change the stroke method to line. Hold hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to press F to decrease the size of my brush. Now we're going to press F to increase the size of the brush. Hold the mouse wheel. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Press F to decrease. F to increase it somewhat. And what we can do is if there's too much, I'm pressing F to, I pressed F to decrease the mask brush. We can hold Control, and that lets us take away, so that was way too much. So I'll hold Control. And then what we can do is, well, so we're gonna hold Control, then press I to invert that selection. Okay, so with that, we'll decrease the size of the brush. Increase the size of the brush now. Decrease it some. Increase the size of the brush. Decrease the size of the brush. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button. Hold Control as well as the mouse button to zoom back. Press F to make the the brush smaller. Would it come right down the center? It's just a way to just add even more detail. So we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have symmetry set up, but automatically in scope mode. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan, hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. I just working on that mask there. So now I'm going to hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. Press F to make this bigger. There we go. Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. F to make this smaller. That looks good. Okay, what we're about to do now, dynamic topology is turned off. We're going to go to the blob brush. Press F. We're basically just using a blob brush to bring this geometry up. I press N to make this panel go away. You can zoom back, press F to make this brush bigger. Just use the blob brush to bring all this geometry out. Hold Shift as well as middle mouse button to pan, hold Control as well as middle mouse button to zoom back. Okay, I'm gonna hold Shift, press B, draw a zoom box, and zoom in. I'm gonna go to this snake hook brush, and what we want to do is pull the geometry up so it's going backwards towards the back of the dragon. So we're kind of pulling it up and back. I'm going to press F to make the brush bigger, just pulling back, holding, just pulling back. Shift this was middle mouse button to pan. So I'm going to pull up and back. On Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Press F to shrink the brush. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Control, the middle mouse button to zoom in. Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom out. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Control, press I to invert the mask. We're going to go to the crease, very similar to what we did with the armor in the front. We're going to press F to decrease the brush size. We're just making a crease along the edge here. Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan. hold control as well as the middle mouse button. I'm just taking a look. Okay, we're going to hold Alt, press M to take the mask off. Looks good. I'm going to zoom the mouse wheel back, hold Shift as well as the middle mouse button to pan down. I'm going to go to Object Mode. Hold Control as well as the middle mouse button. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, press D, right click. Bring this down, press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Go to Edit Mode. Go to Edge Select, left click on nothingness, deselect, hold Alt, hold Shift. I'm going to left click, deselect that. I'll click here, hold Shift. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Hold Shift. And choose X to bring up the delete menu, then faces to delete. Go back to object mode. Press S to scale on the Z axis like that. I'm going to hold Control, press 2. That put a subdivision surface modifier on that. I'm going to right click. Since we're in object mode, I can select Shade Smooth to put some smooth shading on that. We're going to go to what looks like our wrench, which is our modifier tab. We're going to left click and then select Solidify. This will give us thickness to this. So now we have thickness. I'm going to click for this subdivide modifier right there. Hold Control, press R. Put a loop cut right here. I'm going to left click. Hold Alt to select right here. Click to make sure we're on, to change back to medium point. I'm going to hold Alt, press S. This gives us a special kind of scale to scale that out some. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to go to the upper left hand corner, go to object mode, zoom back. Okay, I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to click here, hold Shift, press D, right click, bring this down. I'm going to hold Shift to select both of these, bring them both forward. Click here, move this like this, press R to rotate on the X axis like that. Press S to scale this down. I'm gonna hold Shift and then while holding Shift left click here, I'm gonna hold Control, press J. So now these are one object here. I'm going to right click and then select Shade Smooth. Okay, I'm going to go to Edit Mode. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to go to Face Select first, hover here, press L. I'm going to hold Shift, press E to adjust the mean crease. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to go to Vertex Select, click here, pull up, pull back some. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Go to Edge Select, hold Alt, select here, push this forward, then left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to Face Select, hover here, press L, press S to scale. Now I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Go to object mode. this forward. Press S to scale this down. Hold Control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in. Press R to rotate on the X-axis like this. R to rotate on the Z-axis like this. S to scale. That's the scale. And hold Shift, press D, then right click. Push that down like that. I'm going to click here, go back to edit mode. Hover here, press L, hold Shift, press E. Just to make that harder. I'm going to hover here, press L, so I select it here as well as here. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click. Bring this down like this, press R to rotate on the Z axis like that. S to scale like that. Left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L, hover here, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click. Bring this up, press S to scale. R to rotate on the Z axis like this. R to rotate on the X axis like this. I'm going to hold Alt, press S to make that thinner. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm gonna press A to select everything, hold Shift, press D, right click. I made duplicates. I'm gonna press S to scale. Whoop. Hold Control, press L. Now I'm gonna press R to rotate on the. That's interesting. They're acting somewhat strange. So I selected only rim here, and that made them stop. Acting strange. Strange, like they were, well, they're still changing shape somewhat. It's interesting. Okay, well, I'll press X, choose faces to delete. These ones are fine. So what I'll do is go to object mode, hold Shift, press D, right click, bring these down, press S to scale these down like that. It seems like scaling the things in edit mode was causing issues. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis. Press R to rotate on the Z axis like that. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna click here, hold Shift, click here, and what I'm about to do is join this object is made up of these three pieces to this object. So I'm gonna hold Control, press J. That didn't work out right. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. I'm going to left click and then select mirror modifier. I'm then going to go to the mirror modifier settings. See where we see mirror object. I'm going to left click here and select empty. This is the empty we set up near the beginning of the game. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click here, hold shift, then click here. So I let go of shift. This has the mirror modifier on it with empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold control, press L. This brings up our make links menu. I'm then going to select modifiers. And what that did was that took the modifiers that were on this and put them on this. So now, this had the mirror modifier put on it. And the reason why you might use make links is because it just saved me the step of not having to go to mirror object and then select the empty as that object. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to click here. Make this here like this. Hold shift as well as the middle mouse button. I press R to rotate on the x-axis like this. Press just rotate. I press R to rotate on the y-axis like this. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click, bring a duplicate back, like that. I'm going to left click here, go to scope mode, inflate brush. Do not need dynamic topology for this. I'm going to press F. Increase the thickness here. Back to object mode. R to rotate on the y-axis like this. R to rotate on the y-axis like that. I'll click here. Add a mirror modifier. Select mirror object, empty. I'll click here first, hold shift, click here second, hold control, press L. This brings up our make links menu. I'll select modifiers. Just taking a look. I'm going to left click here, go to scope mode. I'm going to hold control, hold shift, and then left click. You select this here. I'm going to hold control, press I. And I'm going to go to the grab brush. Attempt to bend to adjust how this elbow looks. Just a slight bend in it. Press F. F to shrink my brush. And this thing would probably inflate. Kind of bring it back. Gonna hold Alt, press M, hold Shift to smooth that out. I'm smoothing it out, and that's causing me to lose some scales. I'm going to take a look, see if there's any other changes we would like to make. And then what I can do is go back to draw. I want to turn back on dynamic topology for this. And this being putting scales back on. I want to change the relative detail back to constant detail, which Blender remembers that was 15. Set up my scales. Just put them back on. Okay, I'm going to go back to object mode. Now click on this empty. I'm going to press M to bring up our Move to Collection menu. I'm going to select New Collection. And I name this Empty. Then click Enter. Then click OK. Now here's our empty right here. I'm going to click this eye to hide that empty. Okay, I'm taking a look, and I like how it turned out. One of the things we can do is let's click here, hold Shift, press D, bring this down, bring this straight forward. Let's hold Control, press 2. Right click, shade smooth, press S to scale on the Y axis like this. This up, go to edit mode. Let's go to edge select, hold Shift. I'll hold Control, press R, put a loop cut right here. Hold Control, press R, put a loop cut here, and I'll just pull that to the side some. We'll left click on nothingness to deselect. We'll go to object mode. This is just a makeshift tongue. So I didn't make a tongue before because I was thinking if this is retopologized, I'd probably make the tongue then. But I think it looks better. Would look better with a tongue. So that's the scale. Or to rotate on the x-axis like that. Let's left click, take a look. Yeah, it can be flatter, and let's press S to scale on the z-axis. Well, that's interesting. Global. S to scale on the z-axis. Edit mode. Or hold Control, press R, Put a loop cut in here, left click once, move that up. Left click on nothingness to deselect, go back to object mode. I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Just head down, left click. Hold shift, select these. I'm going to press X to bring up a delete menu and then choose delete to get rid of them. I'm going to move my mouse here, hold shift, press B to draw a zoom box. And click here, go to scope mode, go to the crease brush, hold control to zoom in and set the crease up. I'm doing it wrong. It wasn't holding control. There we go. Just put a more of an angle in there. Go to upper left, go back to object mode, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, left click to deselect, left click on nothingness to deselect. Just rotating, taking a look. I think it looks cool. I like how it turned out. If you made it this far in the tutorial, you made it to the end, congratulations. Okay guys, that's it for the video. For all of those of you who liked videos in this channel and reshare these videos, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos in this channel, you would like to see more, please subscribe and thank you for viewing. Also, if you would like to support this channel to allow me to make even more videos, I would recommend and be thankful if you would consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you again for watching these videos, and I will catch up with you guys later.